Hello and welcome to the Price Academy, bite-sized history videos. This video is introducing Mary Queen of Scots Part 2, Plots and Execution. On the 2nd of May 1568, Mary escaped Lochleven Castle with the help of George Douglas, the castle owner's brother. She managed to raise an army of 6,000 men and she met Moray's smaller forces at the Battle of Longside on the 13th of May. Defeated, she fled south and spent the night at Dunmannan Abbey before crossing the Solway Firth into England by fishing boat on the 16th of May. She landed at Workington in Cumberland in the north of England and stayed overnight at Workington Hall. She was taken into protective custody at Carlisle Castle on the 18th of May. Mary apparently expected Elizabeth to help her regain her throne. Elizabeth was cautious, ordering an inquiry into whether Mary was guilty of Lord Darnley's murder. Mary was moved to Bolton Castle in mid-July 1568 because it was further from the Scottish border but not close to London. While a conference was held in York and Westminster between October 1568 and January 1569 to investigate Mary's guilt, her Scottish supporters fought a civil war against the regent Moray. As anointed queen, Mary refused to acknowledge any power of a court to try her. Regent Moray presented 8 unsigned letters from Mary to Bothwell and 2 love sonnets and 2 marriage contracts called the casket letters. Some biographers of Mary say these were complete forgeries. On the 26th of January 1569, Mary was moved to Tutbury Castle and placed in the custody of the Earl of Shrewsbury and his formidable wife Bess of Hardwicke. Elizabeth considered Mary's designs on the English throne to be a serious issue and so confined her to Shrewsbury's properties including Tutbury, Sheffield Castle, Sheffield Manor Lodge, Wakefield Manor and Chatsworth House, all located halfway between Scotland and London and distant from the sea. Mary was allocated her own staff, which was never less than 16, and she needed 30 carts to transport her belongings from house to house. She was allowed outside under strict supervision whilst under house arrest. In 1571, Cecil and Walsingham, Elizabeth's principal secretaries, uncovered the Ridolfi plot, which was a plan to replace Elizabeth with Mary by the help of Spanish troops and the Duke of Norfolk. Norfolk was executed, but plots centred on Mary continued, including the Throckmorton plot. After this plot, Francis Walsingham introduced the Bond of Association and the Act for the Queen's Safety, which sanctioned the killing of anyone who plotted against Elizabeth and aimed to prevent a potential successor from profiting from her murder. Mary was moved to a moated manor house at Chartley in February 1585 after William Parry was convicted of plotting to assassinate Elizabeth without Mary's knowledge. On the 11th of August 1586, after being implicated in the Babington plot, Mary was arrested while out riding. In a successful attempt to entrap her, Walsingham had deliberately arranged for Mary's letters to be smuggled out of Chartley. Mary was misled into thinking her letters were secure, while in reality they were deciphered and read by Walsingham. From these letters, it was clear that Mary had sanctioned assassination attempts on Elizabeth. After seeing these letters, Elizabeth moved Mary to Fotheringay Castle, which was a 4-day journey which ended on the 25th of September. In October, she was put on trial for treason under the Act for the Queen's Safety before a court of 36 noblemen, including Cecil, Shrewsbury and Walsingham. Mary denied the charges in a spirited defence. She told her triers, "Look to your consciences and remember that the theatre of the whole world is wider than the kingdom of England." She protested that she had been denied the opportunity to review the evidence, that her papers had been removed from her, that she was denied access to legal counsel, and that as a foreign anointed queen she had never been an English subject and could not be convicted of treason. Mary was convicted of treason on October the 25th and sentenced to death, with only one commissioner expressing any form of dissent. Nevertheless, Elizabeth hesitated over the order of her execution, even in the face of pressure from Parliament. On the 1st of February 1587, Elizabeth signed the death warrant. On the 3rd of February, 10 members of the Privy Council, having been summoned by Cecil without Elizabeth's knowledge, decided to carry out the sentence at once. At Fotheringay Castle on the evening of the 7th of February 1587, Mary was told she was to be executed the next morning. She spent the last hours of her life in prayer, writing her will and distributing her belongings to her household. The scaffold that was erected in the Great Hall was draped in black cloth. It was reached by 2 or 3 steps and furnished with a block and a cushion for her to kneel on, plus 3 stools for her and the Earls of Shrewsbury and Kent who were there to witness the execution. The executioner, Bull, and his assistant knelt before her and asked for forgiveness. Mary's servants, Jane Kennedy and Elizabeth Curl, and the executioners helped Mary remove her outer garments, revealing a velvet petticoat and a pair of sleeves in crimson brown, with a black satin bodice and black trimming. Mary was blindfolded by Kennedy with a white veil embroidered in gold. She knelt down on the cushion in front of the block, which she positioned her head and stretched out her arms. The interpretations from A Golden Age and the film Mary Queen of Scots portray this event slightly different, as you can see here. Mary's last words were, "Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." Mary was not beheaded with a single strike. The first blow missed her neck and struck the back of her head. The second blow severed the neck except for a small bit of sinew which the executioner cut through with an axe. Afterwards he held up the head and said, "God save the Queen." At that moment the head fell to the ground, as her auburn tresses were a wig, and she really had very short grey hair. Mary's body was interred at Westminster Abbey in a chapel opposite the tomb of Elizabeth. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, to like it and subscribe, or follow me at Twitter at LittleMissHistory81 at TanyaAlex38.